Hello, everybody. Elizabeth Statlander getting straight to the point on mental health and relationship issues. And today's topic is one of my favorites. Can men be physically, verbally, and emotionally abused in a relationship? And the answer is unequivocally, absolutely, yes, they can. And yes, they are. And this can be somewhat of a controversial issue. And I'll tell you why. Because when we think about physical abuse, we think of, if someone's going to physically abuse you, there's an implication that they are stronger than you or bigger than you and that you can't do anything. That's kind of implied in abuse. And so we think in our culture that men have the physical advantage because they are on average stronger and larger than females. So that kind of connects to the belief system that, there's no way that a woman could ever hurt or abuse a man physically. Wrong. See it all the time. So if a man is not going to respond with violence, which most of the time they don't, it's a smaller portion that does, if they're not going to respond with violence in general, then they're at a complete disadvantage if the female wants to get physical. So if the wife or the, girlfriend or whomever, kicks, hits, burns, I've heard it all, the male, that is abuse. It's not abuse because it was done by somebody who's believed to be less strong or smaller in stature. Abuse is abuse, and if it doesn't matter if it's male or female, it's all wrong. Okay, so now if a man responds to the abuse, the physical abuse from a female, that can get into a really gray area, because if he pushes the woman or just tries to remove her from being on top of himself, or from the attack, it's not unlikely that the man would be the one to go to jail. And I've seen this before. I'm not saying that men should respond with violence, or that anybody should respond with violence, but there's somewhat of a double standard in there, where if a man, if a man hits a woman in self-defense, chances are he's going to be in trouble with the law. If it happens the other way, probably not, although I do see the laws have been changing. The domestic violence laws are kind of getting a little bit more fair on that ground. But, I'm not by any, stretch of the imagination, endorsing, physical actions in a relationship, because quite frankly, if your relationship is getting physical, you can just forget it. I mean, it's just not, that is not saying anything very good about the connection or the relationship between the two of you. We all have some major blowouts in the courses of our long relationships and marriages, but when you're getting physical with your partner, male or female, you got big problems. So let's go on to the emotional and the verbal abuse that women can bestow upon men. So women can abuse men the same way that men could abuse a woman, verbally or emotionally. They can emasculate them, call them names, taunt them, put them down, say mean things about them, tear them down. And this is verbal abuse. When you're abusing somebody, and again, speaking from a hierarchy in a way that, you have some sort of advantage over this person and you're hurting them consistently and continuously, that's abusive. And again, emotional abuse, as we discussed before, is more of abusive, mean action that causes the same, horrible feelings of humiliation that any other type of abuse does. And the emotional side of it is, flirting with other men in front of your husband or boyfriend, just like men can do it with women. They can, humiliate them in front of people. They can, spit on them, kick. I've heard, it sounds crazy, but I've seen and heard it all. They can, disappear. They can steal money, from their husband. It goes on and on. And so women are not necessarily, unable to abuse a man. It's just simply not true. And, words hurt and mean actions hurt, especially when they're consistent and continuous. They hurt a man just as much as they hurt a woman. There's just no difference. And so anyone who thinks there is, in my opinion, is sorely mistaken. I see a lot of really wonderful guys and gals come in here who are in abusive relationships, but gender certainly is not the defining difference. And certainly if you have, a male-on-male relationship, you can have domestic abuse there too. So it doesn't skip anybody. Anybody is equally able to abuse anybody as the other. And that's, my beliefs, and I'm sticking to them. So if you happen to be a male who, feels like they're in an abusive relationship or being abused, verbally, emotionally, physically, don't be ashamed to come in and talk about it. I think it's hard for men because men want to always appear brawn and strong, and, they too buy into the idea that they can't be abused, but again, they can. So if you're looking for some help, some relief, some freedom, eliztherapist@gmail.com. Be nice to each other, everybody. Have a good weekend.